So statistical learning, this is a concept that you might have heard in other different forms. Like it's called other things. All right. First, to illustrate what statistical learning is, what I want you to do is take a second and read this passage. And you could pause it. As you, if you haven't seen this before, it's a fairly easy passage to read. And the idea is we can discern the words. So the first and the last letters are all in order, right? But then the middle letters are all jumbled up. But still, people generally don't have a hard time reading this. Like they can read it pretty quickly, almost at a similar pace, if not the same pace as if they were reading it and everything was all in order. And so the question is why? All right. Well, to think about that answer is another variation of this. And you can read this. And the same thing. The first and last letters are all in order. The only thing that's jumbled up are the middle letters. Now this one you might find to be a little bit more of a challenge. It's a little bit harder. Maybe you don't read it as quickly as the previous passage. And then the question is why? So why was the first passage easier than the second one? Yeah, and so researchers point out the fact that language has thousands of different patterns and rules, and then we're not taught all of them, but we learn all of them, or most of them, a lot of them. We learn more than we think we do, right? And when we go back to this first passage, right, the reason why it's easier to read than the second passage is because there is a pattern, right? There's an expectation. We know based on the first and last letters the likelihood of what the word will be, but we also know the likelihood of certain words being connected to or flowing from other words. And so we could probably say, according to research at an English university, right, we can pretty quickly know from according to research, there's only, research might be conducted in limited places, right? And so we kind of know, like, we have an expectation about what might be coming up next, right? And so there are patterns. There are patterns, the likelihood of things occurring together. Certain words occurring together, certain letters occurring together to make certain words, passages, and phrases. And that's not always explicitly taught to us, but we learn it. This passage, we start to see certain words that are unlikely to fit. Like sometimes it just doesn't make sense, right? There's certain words that just don't fit there. And so even though the first and last letters are the same, now we have to try to figure out that word because the context isn't revealing, a very quick, number of possibilities that word might be. And so this is a little bit more challenging because, there are certain words that are just outside the context. They just don't fit the flow of the passage. They don't fit the range of possibilities for what words might occur together. And so this is supposed to illustrate, be an example of statistical learning. And there's another illustration would be the implicit association task. Right? If you haven't taken one of these, the idea of the implicit association task, it's supposed to measure people's implicit associations, right? The associations they make outside of their conscious awareness. And the implicit associations are viewed as associations that people form based on the regularity presented to them in the environment. So, for example, if you look at like something that's been under critique a lot has been Disney films. Because the older school Disney films, for example, might have portrayed women in a certain way, and so through the regularity of those associations, people form norms, concepts about about the roles women play. Right, you can see in all the different implicit association tasks. Right, you can see it's supposed to measure what's your people's associations with old folks, what's the associations with young folks. It's supposed to reveal associations based on race, based on political affiliation. The idea is that certain things are more likely to be paired together than others, and we're not always aware that we're exposed to these associations. But through the exposure to those associations, we start to form concepts. And so the implicit association is supposed to sort of measure that exposure to those associations. And one of the things that people discuss about the implicit association task, well, if we form these concepts, does it mean we believe those things, right? And so if I associate certain things with females, associating with females doesn't mean I'm sexist, right? And folks would say, no, not necessarily, right? And the idea is not that the implicit associations form our ethical consciousness, but they form and they're likely to emerge at certain times and places. And they could influence our behavior, our ethics, right? But they don't necessarily have to. But what this idea of statistical learning speaks to is that there's a lot of processing going on outside of our conscious awareness, outside of our conscious control. Right? And so we may be sort of attending to things, but it's not attention in this active way. It's not me choosing to select something from the world to be processed. Right? But it's me processing information based on the regularity of their association. It could be that attention, but it's attention, but it's not intention. It's not this active thing, right? I'll be forming concepts based on my exposure to this, but I may not be aware of my exposure to it. So the idea of statistical learning is some things happen together more or often than others. And there's a probability of some things occurring together more often than others. Right? Again, this is what the implicit association task is supposed to measure, right? The co-occurrence of certain things. The co-occurrence of things can form concepts and associations. And here is right. We form these associations whether we mean to or not. Right? We're not always aware that we might be forming these associations. It doesn't mean it dictates what we do or it governs our ethical consciousness. It just means we might have formed these associations. And so the statistical learning theorists would say that the mind is still like a giant computer, so it's still very much in line with the information processing theory, but it can quickly and quietly process a lot of information, more than what information processing theorists suggest. And so it deviates from it sort of statistical learning kind of aligns in many ways with information processing theory in that there is an external world that's entering into our consciousness, but it deviates it from based on the role of attention and what that means, right? We could be right. It depends on if you think attention is active, right? That it's always something I'm in control of, right? Then you can say statistical learning would say, well, we learn a lot of stuff without attending to it, without being actively attending to stuff. But if you think attention can be something that happens outside of control, then you could say, hey, statistical learning folks would say we are attending to it, right? But the idea is we are processing information that's not always active, and we're processing more than we think. And there's a very interesting lecture by Daniel Kahneman. He talks about the distinction between fast and slow thinking. Like, this is a useful sort of a useful way of thinking about this idea of statistical learning. Statistical learning would be that fast thinking, right? There's a lot of fast things happening. I'm processing things quickly. I'm responding quickly. But our thinking is based on our exposure to the statistical regularity of certain things appearing together. So you can see, based on statistical learning and body cognition, there's a more complex picture about how it is we learn and how it is that we remember. Right? That's not captured so neatly in that information processing perspective.